into it! Get into it! Yes! We're back! Hi! We are back with another installment of Storytime with Chris. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max and relax and chillaxing time. In between time, mean time, scheme time, study time, break time, CP time, anytime that you want to hear a highly animated voice to bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, and many, many more in between. Hi. Welcome back. And we are here again with the Grey King, and last time we were here was kind of a chaotic ending. The Grey King is a lot more powerful as a master of the dark than we earlier surmised, because not only was he able to move the mountain to make Will Stanton trip very badly and injure himself, but he also has been using the King of the Milgwyn, the Grey Foxes of the Welsh Mountains, to antagonize Karadic Pritchard so badly that he's coming an hour to 2 hours away from the village to try to shoot this man's dog because he assumed the dog killed his sheep, when that's near to impossible because the dog, even running at full speed, wouldn't be able to get away that fast. And Bran has showed up on his bicycle, warning Will, like, hey, he's coming. Like, he's upset, and he's got his gun. We need to hide Penn. So let's go ahead and get started. Oops, excuse me. The Warestone. Bran got to his feet, brushing off dust and grass. Will gaped at him. You've just cycled all the way from Clúvid? Bran nodded. Karadic Pritchard came roaring up in his van this morning looking for Penn. He's dead set on shooting him. I was frightened, Will. The way he looks, he's not like a man at all. And I think he have been hunting all night for John Rowlands and Penn. He was all creased looking and not shaved. His breath was coming more normally now. Oh, his breath was coming more normally now. He picked up his bicycle. Come on, quick! Bran does not want to see another innocent dog be shot for the machinations of the dark, and he's come to realize that Will is the one person who will be able to in some way help him. Where should we go? I don't know. Anywhere, just away from here. He tucked his bicycle up over the bank, edging the lane at the left, and led them off through bushes and trees towards the open moorland that stretched back down the valley away from the lake. Will scrambled after him with Penn at his side. But does he really know we're here? He couldn't. That's the only part I don't understand, Bran said. He was having a big argument with your cousin Race about where Penn was, and then suddenly stopped in the middle of it and went very quiet. It was almost as if you were listening. Then he said, I know where they're gone. They're gone to the lake. Just like that. Race tried to talk him out of it, but I don't think that's worked. Somehow Pritchard just knew. I'm positive he's on his way to Typont. Penn! Hey! He whistled, and the dog paused ahead, waiting for them. They were walking on a rising ground now, through waist-high bracken on a meandering sheep path. How did you get here before him, then? Will said. Bran looked over his shoulder with a quick grin. He had moved ahead on the path, pushing his bike. Something seemed to have transformed him out of the figure of despair Will had seen the day before. Karadic Pritchard will not be too pleased about it, Bran said solemnly. I had my clasp knife in my pocket, you see, and I happened to be passing his van when he was not looking, and I stuck it in his back tire and gave it a good jerk. And while I was at it, I stuck it in his spare tire too. You know the way he has that spare bolted on the side of the van? A mistake, that is. You should keep it inside. The tension inside Will snapped like a breaking sprig, and he began to laugh. Once he had started, it was hard to stop. Bran paused, grinning, and then the grin became a chuckle, and before long they were reeling with laughter, roaring, tottering, clutching at one another in a wild fit of chortling mirth, with the dog Penn leaping about them happily. Imagine his face, Will gasped, when he goes tearing off in the van and poof, the tire goes flat and he gets all furious and changes and goes tearing off again and poof. They collapsed again, gurgling. Bran took off his dark glasses and wiped them. Mind you, he said, it is going to make everything worse in the long run, because he will know very well somebody cut the tires on purpose, and that will just make him wilder than ever. Worth it, Will said, controlled again but cheerful. He gave Bran a sideways, rather shy glance. Hey, he said, It was nice of you to come, considering. Oh well, Brad said. He put the glasses back on, retreating once more into inscrutability. His white hair lay in damp, darkened lines across his forehead. He seemed to be about to say something else, but changed his mind. Come on, he said, jumped on the bicycle, and began pedaling erratically off along the weaving path along the bracken. Will began to run. Where are we going? Goodness knows. They careered along in a happy lunatic chase through the valley, over open slopes, down into hollows, up over ridges, in and out of rounded lichened rocks, through grass and bracken and heather and gorse, and quite often on damper ground near one of the little streams that fed the river, through reeds and iris leaves. They had come a long way from the lake. This was the main valley land now, upon grazing land, merging into the arable fields of Cluvid and Pritchard's farm further down past the jutting hills. Suddenly Brad skidded, tumbling sideways, thinking he had fallen. Will went to help, but Brad grabbed his arm and pointed urgently across the moorland. Over there, on the road. There's a curve a long way down where you can see cars coming before they get here. I'm almost sure I just saw Pritchard's van. Will grabbed Penn by the collar and looked wildly about. We must get under cover. Behind those rocks over there? Wait. I see where we are. There's a better place. Just up here. Come on. Brad bumped off again. The big sheepdog slipped from Will's hand and bounded after him. Will ran. They rounded a group of nearby trees, and there beyond it was the glimmer of gray stone and slate behind a low ruined wall. The cottage looked quite different from behind. Will did not recognize it until too late. Brad had shot inside, thumping open the broken back door before he could call to prevent him, and then there was no alternative but to follow. Naked to the eye of the Grey King, feeling the force of the dark pressing sudden and strong on him like a huge hand, he stumbled after the dog and the white-haired boy into the cottage from which the Milgwyn had stolen the wounded sheep. The cottage where Owen Davis had fought Corotic Pritchard for the woman he had borne and deserted Brad. The cottage haunted now more than ever by the malice of the rising dark. But Brad, propping his bicycle against a wall, was bright and unaffected. Is this perfect? It's an old shepherd's hut. No one's used it for years. Quick, over here. Keep your head down. They crouched beside the window, Penn lying quiet beside them, and saw through the jagged hole the small gray van passing perhaps 50 yards away on the road. Pritchard was driving slowly. They could see him peering from side to side, scouring the land. He glanced incuriously at the cottage and drove on. The van disappeared along the road to Tilly Little. Brad leaned back against the wall. Lucky. But Will was paying no attention. He was too much occupied with shielding his mind from the raging malevolence of the Grey King. He said through his teeth, the words coming slow and dragging. Let's get away from here. Brad stared at him but asked no questions. All right then. He turned to the dog, and suddenly his voice came high as the wind in the telegraph wires. Penn, what is it? Look at him, Will. The dog lay flat on his stomach, his forelegs splayed outwards, his head down sideways against the floor. It was horrible, unnatural, a position impossible for any normal living creature. A faint whistling whine came from his throat, but he did not move. It was as if invisible pens held him forced flat against the ground. Penn, Will said in horror. Penn! But he could not lift the dog's head. The animals were not paralyzed by any natural circumstance. Only enchantment could force him so hard into the earth that no living hand could move him. What is it? There was fear in Brad's face. It is the Brennan Luvet, Will said. His tone seemed to Brad deeper than before, more resonant. It is the Brennan Luvet, and he has forgotten the bargain that he made when we spoke yesterday. He has forgotten that he gave me 1 night and 1 day. You spoke to him? Brad heard his voice come out in a broken whisper, and he crouched there motionless beside the window. But again, Will was paying no attention. He spoke half to himself in the same strange adult voice. It is set not at me, but at the dog. It is indirect, then. A device. I wonder. He broke off and glanced at Brad, waving a finger at him in warning. You may watch me if you will, though it would be better not. But you must say nothing and make no move, not one. All right, Brad said. He watched, crouching on the dirty, broken slate floor in one corner, and he saw Will move to the middle of the room to stand beside the hideously prostrate dog. Will bent and picked up a broken piece of wood from the litter of the empty years that lay scattered everywhere. He touched it to the ground below his feet and, turning, drew a circle about Penn and himself on the floor with the tip of the stick. Where the circle was drawn, a ring of blue flames sprang up, and when it was complete, Will relaxed and stood full upright like someone freed of a great burden that had been weighing him down. He raised the stick vertically in the air over his head so that it touched the low ceiling, and he said some words in a language that Brad did not understand. The cottage seemed to grow very dark, so that Brad's weak eyes, blinking, could see nothing but the blue ring of cold fire and Will's form shadowy in the middle of it. But then he saw that another light was beginning to glow in the room, a small blue spark. Somewhere in the far corner, steadily growing brighter, until it blazed with such intensity that he was forced to look away. Will said something sharp and angry in the language that Brad could not understand. The circle of blue flames flared high and then low, high and low, high and low 3 times, and then suddenly went out. Instantly, the cottage was full of daylight again, and the brilliant star of light nowhere to be seen. Brad let out a long, slow breath, staring about the room to try and see where the light had been. But the room seemed now so different and ordinary that he could not tell, nor could he imagine where the circle had been drawn, though he knew it had been round Will. Will, standing there unmoving, was the only thing in the room that seemed to have changed utterly in that 1 second. And even he seemed now once more different, a boy as he had been, but glaring round the floor irritably as if peering for an errant marble that had rolled away. He glanced at Brad and said crossly, "Come look at this." Then, without waiting, while Brad scrambled nervously up, he crossed to the far corner of the room, crouched, and began rifling through a small pile of debris. Pushing them aside, he cleared a space in which one small white pebble lay alone. He said to Brad, "Pick it up." Puzzled, Brad reached out and took the pebble, but he found that he could not pick it up. He worked at it with his fingers. He stood up, straddled it, and tried with thumbs and forefingers to pull it up from the floor. He stared at the pebble and then at Will. "It's part of the floor. It must be." "The floor is made of slate," Will said. He still sounded cross, almost petulant. "Well, yes, no stones in slate through, but all the same it's fixed somehow. Bit of quartz. It won't budge." "It's a stone," Will said, his voice flat now and weary. "The awareness of the Grey King, I might have guessed. It is in this place his eyes and ears and his mouth. Through it, just through the fact of its lying there, he not only knows everything that happens in this place, but can send out his power to do certain things. Only certain things, not any very great magic, but for instance, he is able so to paralyze Penn there that we can no more move him than we can move the stone itself." Brad knelt in distress beside the dog and stroked the head flattened so unnaturally against the floor. "But if Craddock Pritchard tracks us here, he might. His dogs might. Then he'll just shoot Penn where he lies, and there'll be nothing we can do to help." Will said bitterly, "That's the idea." "But Will, that can't happen. You've got to do something." "There is just one thing that I can do," Will said. "Though obviously I can't tell what it is with that thing there. It means I shall have to borrow your bicycle. But I'm not too sure whether you should stay here alone." "Somebody's got to. We can't leave Penn like that, not on his own." "I know, but the stone." Will glared at the pebble as if it were some infuriating small child sitting there clutching an object too precious for it to hold. "It is not a particularly powerful weapon," he said, "but it's one of the oldest. We all use them, both the light and the dark. There are rules, sort of. None of us can actually be affected by a werestone. Only observed. That wretched pebble can give the Grey King an idea of what I do and say here. A general idea, like an image. It's not as specific as a television set, mercifully. It can't do anything to harm me or stop me doing what I want to do, except through the control it has over objects. I mean, it can't actually affect me because I am an old one, but it can transmit the power of the dark, or of the light, if it happened to belong to an old one, to affect men and animals and the things of the earth. It can stop Penn from moving and therefore stop me from moving him, you see, so that if you stay here, there's no knowing what exactly it's able to do to you." Brad said obstinately, "I don't care." He sat cross-legged by the dog. "Can't kill me, can it?" "Oh, no." Well then, I'm staying. Go on. Off with the bike." Will nodded as if that was what he had been expecting. I'll be as quick as I can, but take care. Stay very wide awake. If anything does happen, it will come in the way you least expect. Then he was gone out of the door, and Brad was left in the cottage with the dog pressed impossibly flat against the slate floor by an invisible high wind staring at a small white stone.
Good day, Mrs. Jones. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Pritchard. And you? Craddock Pritchard's plump, pale face was glistening with sweat. Impatience swept away his Welsh politeness. He said abruptly,
Where is John Rowlands?
John? Said cozy Megan Jones, wiping flowery heads on her apron. There now, what a shame. You've missed him, Idris, and he went off to Aberglow half an hour ago. They will not be back until dinner, and that will be late today. You want to see him urgently, is it, Mr. Pritchard? Craddock Pritchard stared at her vacantly and did not answer. He said in a high, tight voice, Is Rowland's dog here? Pen? Goodness, no, Mrs. Jones said truthfully. Not with John. Gone, she smiled amiably at him. Is it the man you want to see or the dog, then? Well, indeed, you are welcome to wait for them here, though, as I say, it may be quite a time. Let me get you a cup of tea, Mr. Pritchard, and a nice fresh Welsh cake.
No,
Mr. Pritchard said, running his hand distractedly through his raw red hair.
No, thank you.
He was so lost in his own mind that he scarcely seemed to be aware of her at all.
I'll be off to town and see if I can find them there. At the Crown, perhaps. John Rowlands has some business with Idris Tybont, does he?
Oh, said Mrs. Jones comfortably. He's just visiting, since he had something to do in Aberglow. Anyway, just a call, you know, Mr. Pritchard. Like your own. She beamed innocently at him.
Well, said Craddock Pritchard, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Megan Jones looked after him as he swung the grey van hastily round and drove away down the lane. Her smile faded. Not a nice man, she said to the farmyard at large, and something is going on behind those little eyes of his that is not nice at all. A very lucky thing it was that young Will happened to take that dog for a walk just now. Will paddled hard, blessing the valley road for its winding flatness, and freewheeling only when his pounding heart seemed about to leap right out of his chest. He rode one-handed. He had said nothing about his hurt arm, and Brad had not noticed, but it hurt abominably if he so much as touched the handlebars with his left hand. He tried not to think about the way it would feel when carrying the golden harp. That was the only thing to be done now. The music of the harp was the only magic within his reach that would release Penn from the power of the Warestone. In any case, it was time now to bring the harp to the pleasant lake, to accomplish its deeper purpose. Everything was coming together, as if two roads led to the same mountain pass. He could only hope that the pass would not be blocked by some obstacle able to hinder both at once. This time, more than ever, the matter of holding the dark at bay depended as much on the decisions and emotions of men as on the strength of the light, perhaps even more. Broken sunlight flickered in and out of his eyes as clouds scudded briskly over the sky. At least, he thought wryly, we've got a good day for it all. His wheels sang on the road. He was nearly at Cluvet Farm now. He wondered how he was to explain his sudden arrival and equally sudden departure afterwards to Aunt Jen. She would probably be the only one there. She must have been there for Craddock Pritchard's appearance earlier that morning. And the change of his two mutilated tires. Perhaps he could say that he had come to get something to help, but to put Pritchard off the scent to keep him from finding Penn. Something John Rowlands had suggested, but still, he would have to leave the house with the golden harp. Aunt Jen would not likely to be letting that sacking swathed object past her sharp eye without at least inquiring what was wrapped up in there. And what possible reason could anyone have had, least of all her nephew, for not letting her see? Will wished, not for the first time, that Merriman were with him to ease such difficulties. For a master of the light, it was no greater matter to transport beings and objects not only through space, but through time in the twinkling of an eye. But for the youngest of the old ones, however acute his need, that was a talent too large. So even though Will has read all of the Book of Gramarye and learned all of the magic of the old ones, and the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years that they have been around, he's still learning. He's an adept. He's not a beginner. He's definitely an adept. He's not a master yet. But he'll get there. Just takes time. Excuse me. He came to the farm, rode in, pushed through the back door, and when he called, no one came. He realized suddenly with a great lightening of the spirits that he had seen no cars in the yard outside. Both his aunt and uncle must have gone out. That was one piece of luck. At any rate, he ran upstairs to his bedroom, said the necessary words to release the golden heart from protection, and ran down again with it under his arm, a rough sacking wrapped bundle of odd triangular shape. He was halfway across the yard to the bicycle when a Land Rover chugged in through the gate. For a second, Will froze in panic. Then he walked slowly, carefully to the bicycle and turned it ready to leave. Owen Davis climbed out of the car and stood looking at him. He said,
"Was it you who left the gate open?"
"Oh gosh," Will said, genuinely shocked. He had committed the classical farm sin without even noticing. "Yes, I did, Mr. Davis. That's awful. I'm most terribly sorry." Owen Davis, thin and earnest, shook his flat cap head in reproof.
"One of the most important things to remember, it is to shut any gates you've opened on a farm. You do not know what livestock of your uncle's might have slipped out, that should have been kept in. I know you are English and no doubt a city boy, but that is no excuse."
"I know," Will said. "I'm not even a city boy. I really am sorry. I'll tell Uncle David so." Taken aback by his implication of honest confidence, Owen Davis surfaced abruptly from the pool of righteousness that had threatened to swallow him.
"Well," he said, "let us forget it this time, both of us. I dare say you will not do it again."
His gaze drifted sideways a little.
"Is that Brad's bike you have there? Did he come with you?"
Will pressed the shrouded harp tight between his elbow and his side. "I borrowed it. He was out riding, and I was up the valley walking, and I saw him, and we thought we'd have a go at flying a big model plane I've been making." He patted the bundle under his arm, swinging his leg over the bicycle saddle at the same time. "So I'm going back now. Is that all right? You don't need him for anything."
"Oh, no," Owen Davis said. "Nothing at all."
"John Rollins took Penn to Mr. Jones and at Tybont, all safe and sound," Will said brightly. "I'm supposed to be having dinner there late-ish," Mr. Jones said. "Would it be all right if I took Brad back with me too, Mr. Davis? Please?" The usual expression of alarmed propriety came over Owen Davis's thin face.
"Oh, no, now, Mrs. Jones is not expecting. There is no need to bother her with another."
Unexpectedly, he broke off. It was as if he's heard something without understanding it. Puzzled, Will saw his face become oddly bemused with the look of a man dreaming a dream that he has dreamed often but never been able to translate. It was a look he would never have expected to find on the face of a man so predictable and uncomplicated as Brad's father. Owen Davis stared at him full in the face, which was even more unusual. He said,
"Where did you say you and Brad were playing?"
Will's dignity ignored the last word. He kicked at the bicycle pedal, out on the moor, quite a long way up the valley near the road. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but more than halfway to Mr. Jones's farm.
"Ah,"
Owen Davis said vaguely. He blinked at Will, apparently back in his usual nervous person.
"Well, I dare say it would be all right if Brad goes to dinner as well. John Rollins being there, goodness knows Megan Jones used to feeding a lot of mouths. But you must be sure to tell him he must be home before dark."
"Thank you," said Will, and made off before he could change his mind. Carefully closing the gate after he'd ridden through, he shouted a farewell with just time to notice Brad's father's hand slowly raised as he rode away. But he was not many yards along the road, riding awkwardly, one-handed and slowly with the harp clutched in his aching left arm, before all thought of Owen Davis was driven from his head by the Grey King. Now the valley was throbbing with power and malevolence. The sun was at its highest point, though no more than halfway up in the sky in that November day. The last part of the time for the fulfilling of Will's only separate quest had begun. His mind was so occupied with the unspoken beginnings of battle that it was all his body could do to push the bicycle and himself slowly along the road. He paid little attention when a Land Rover swished past him, going fast in the same direction. Several cars had passed him already on both journeys, and in this part of the country Land Rovers were common. There was no reason at all why this one should have deferred from the rest. And that is where we will end for today. As always, I love and appreciate you all for watching. Thank you all for enjoying this edition of Storytime, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, lovelies. Bye-bye.